Hello everyone, this is Windjammer, and I want to show you now a mod that I did. Everyone knows that on the new LTX taggers that they light up when they are hit. Very cool, nice to see the lights when you've been hit. The old LTTO, as you know, do not light up. And the question is there a way to make these light up? And I had looked on the web and found a lot of great mods on how to do that. However, after looking at them and working on them, I think I found a way to do this mod without cutting any internal wires to make it as easy as possible. It's still some work, and I'm going to show you right now. And basically, once you've done everything, when you hit the tagger, it should look like this. And it lights up very nice. So this is something I'm going to show you exactly how I did.
Okay, I'm going to use a series of slides for my presentation here. I figure I can get pretty high resolution imagery and I can control exactly what I'd like to see. And of course, when you begin, make sure you have a nice messy workspace to begin with here. This is my messy workspace, and of course this is what it's going to look like when have the hit lights installed. It glows real nicely in the dark. Very nice effect. Let's get started. The blue drone, this is going to be our victim. So what you do, of course, take out all the screws and make sure you save them. The screws at the bottom are different threads than the other screws, so make sure you save them separately. You don't want to get them mixed up. And then you open up the end. This is what it looks like inside. Obviously, you want to take off the back cover and remove the battery tray. And I always like to just pull the trigger once the battery tray is removed and press the red reset button. And once you do, you get a little mixed up screen like this. It just kind of drains the capacitor, and just make sure you don't short anything out. May not be completely necessary, but it's kind of cool. Next, you remove the top half of the tagger, and this is what it looks like inside. This is a close-up of the wire assembly that goes to the Molex connector at the bottom. And before we begin, of course, we want to remove the trigger and the shield buttons. And the Molex connector is trapped here inside this plastic assembly. And what we're going to do is we're going to free it. And to do that, of course, you take away the screws and you lift up the cover plate. And here's the Molex connector. It can come out of the base. And this is what you have. Now obviously you need to free up the wire assembly from this plastic sleeve, and the only way to do that is to use wire nippers and to just clip away at the plastic. Once you've made a little hole, the wire assembly is free to depart its cage and is free cables. Very cool. Next, just return the plastic sleeve to the base, and then you just screw those back in and set it aside and wait for further instructions on that. And here's the Molex cable assembly. Before I move on, I just want to mention here, what this mod is going to do is it's going to sacrifice the accessibility of this Molex connector. Typically it's there so that you can attach a rumble pack to it. Now when you do this mod, this Molex connector is not going to be there at the bottom of the hilt of your tagger. So you will not be able to attach a rumble pack to your tagger once you do this mod. We'll talk a little bit more about that, but just keep that in mind. The next step is, if you look here, there's some melted plastic. And the melted plastic is there just to keep the wires intact. Real easy to free this up. You could take your fingernail, just kind of separate the plastic bits, and it should come free. Next, you pull the wire assembly up, and it's now being held in place by this plastic part. And you just take a screwdriver and unscrew the bottom screw, and there's two screws hidden in the back here with some wires. You'll carefully want to lift up the wires to get to the screws. Once you have those screws out, this plastic part will come out. I also want to mention it would be very helpful to use a screwdriver that has a metallic point to it, a magnetic tip to it, because that will, if your screws kind of get lost, you can use the screwdriver tip to help rescue any screws that may fall, or it keeps them from falling. So it's a very, very useful tool. Next, when you lift up the wire assembly, you'll notice that it is taped together to some other wires that we don't need to lift out. And the best way to get rid of this tape is you can try to pry it apart with your fingers, or you can just use some scissors to cut the tape. Of course, you want to be careful not to cut any wires. And here we go. And the wire assembly is now as far as we can take it. I did this mod once before, and I noticed that the wire assembly that we need to free, the wire assembly that goes to the Molex connector, was also underneath this thick brown cable. And if that's the case with yours, if you can't get it out, you may need to loosen this small screw at the bottom and take that brown cable out, just kind of free it up. But once you do, it's really easy to put back together. But the goal here is to get this cable assembly free, and we've done that here. So next, you should have 4 wires left, and you want to then return the plastic cap back onto those cables. Screw those back in, and you're good to go. And we now have a free wire assembly, and this is what you have. Next step is we have the dome. We want to take off the red dome of the tagger. So this whole assembly slides out, and if you look underneath here, the plastic dome is held into place by 3 legs. 1 is at the top and 2 are at the bottom. And what they did was, in the factory, they melted the ends of this plastic pegs so that it stays in on the board. Now this may take some effort, but what you'll need to do is take some wire nippers and just kind of chew the ends and work your way around it and kind of pull and chew the ends, and just keep doing that back and forth until you get the legs free from the assembly here. And here's one that's finally free, and the rest of it is free as well. So it took some work to do. You'll need to use both hands. But once you got it, you got it. And there you can see the wire nippers, and I used some needle nose pliers to gently take it apart there as well. Okay, once you have the top off, just set it aside, and this is what you have so far. Okay. Next is we need to assemble some parts.
Does Windjammer have the right parts? Does he know what he's doing? Can he know what he's doing? And what about Naomi? Tune in next time for the exciting continuation of Love of Laser Tag.